Hi, everybody. Welcome to another session of BizzTalk. And today we have Vuyo, and we're going to be talking about infrastructure investments and opportunities in South Africa. My guest today is Vuyo, and my wonderful co-host, who's been on previous session, is Brant. And I think the interesting thing here is that Brant is also from South Africa. So I think today we're going to have an amazing conversation. So Vuyo, if I can hand over to you just to sort of like introduce our viewers a little bit to what you're doing right now and what what you'd like to sort of focus on in today's session.
Thanks very much. I'm really looking forward to the chat too, and thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
I'm really going to focus on the philosophical view around sort of Africa investment, the requirement for investment in Africa, and really a really broad view of infrastructure investment. One of the things that's happened over time is that the way we've looked at returns and investment and returns is that infrastructure has been left lagging, and you can't have an environment like Africa that has contributed so much to the world, where in essence has really an undercapitalization and investment in infrastructure, especially when we think about delivering services and quality of life to our communities. And actually the birth of our startup yet, which is a logistics tech business, is really around how do we bring the informal sector that's servicing our community into the main economy, and using technology to do that. And we'd been tracking for a while really that we have, if you look at all the stats up to 2030 and beyond, is that we have a fast growing consumer base. Will be, the youngest population globally, with consumption rates through the roof. Yet, if you look at e-commerce uptake up until last year, we were just trailing on like 1.5%, which is nonsensical. Well, nonsensical until you kind of start to really dig. We're highly, especially in South Africa, we're highly consumptive, but why aren't we, why is e-commerce trailing? And you then start to see it's the infrastructure lack and that e-commerce would have to trade on, and the lack of investment in that, the distribution centers, the roads, the fleets, the financial services and the platforms that enable all of that. It's the lack of infrastructure in that's meant that the uptake of e-commerce on the African continent has been really slow. We see Amazon is now coming in as internet gets better. Road and freight are really interesting in terms of that sort of last mile. I see globally direct to consumer, Nike's doing the same, and Africa's lagged behind because our view on return has been, when you think infrastructure, you have to think 10, 20 years at a time. Yet most private equity, most venture capital thinks 2, 3, 5 years at a time. So how are you really looking at deploying capital when you're already thinking of an exit, and yet you leave these communities behind, you dig more, you take all the mining resource out, and you kind of head for the hills. So that is sort of the broad philosophical view that brought us to it. And maybe if Dirk doesn't mind, he could share an explainer video for our which basically speaks to our startup year two, which will give a little bit of insight on where we're coming from.
Short left, short right, after robot, bus stop, Ekone. Taxi is an integral part of our lives, with over 250,000 of them transporting 70% of the population, while making about 15 million trips every day. Millions of us live in areas other types of public transport and delivery services do not touch, so we depend on this vital service. This makes our taxi industry and taxi drivers the lifeblood of our communities and the economy. They keep everything going. With the age, the power of the taxi industry is unlocked even more to further improve lives. Now taxis don't just take us to and from our destinations, they also bring the shops to our doors, saving us time and effort, improving the quality of our lives. Dankie driver, dankie vrysin, dankie for groceries, dankie for the hardware, dankie for the takeaways, dankie for the drinks, dankie driver. The taxi industry and drivers also benefit from it, as the delivery service provides much needed additional income. Year 2 works for us because it is built by us, for us. It is ours.
Well, that's in essence it. That is, we're taking the largest fleet in the country, and it's very similar through the continent and parts of Asia and parts of Latin America, where commuter taxis are in essence the main means of transport for, in our country, 70% of the population. These fleets then sit for 6 hours at a time, kind of ambling along. And these as our explainer says, this is the lifeblood. So you have this ubiquitous fleet. There's a taxi at any given point in time in South Africa, 100 meters from wherever you are, and yet these fleets then park off for hours at a time, and everyone is designed away from the community and sort of left them there, during the 6 hours whilst logistics picks up. And there's a requirement for fulfillment. So ours was to say, well, these are people that are servicing our community. They go to our community, and instead of, especially when the first lockdown hit like a year ago, it was clear to me that like, how do I get goods and services to my mom in Soweto, right, in a township somewhere, and that's really what it is that really thinking about solving problems intuitively, knowing the things that we grew up around, knowing the lack of infrastructure, and also using people who are servicing those communities. And what applies to South Africa with Year 2 applies to Zimbabwe, it applies in Mexico. This is a sort of a very community-orientated solution, designing towards the informal sector coming into the main versus designing away from. We're well aware of the risks of taking an environment that's sort of been left out of the main economy and now is going to have to deal with customer satisfaction and all the rest of it. But that's the point when I say infrastructure. If you're in Europe and you look at quality control or service levels or when customer satisfaction, that in fact speaks to quality of life experiences, right? Each brand says to itself, rate me on how I've added value to your life. Yet when people are designing for base of the pyramid consumers and people, we don't really care what the life experience of this person is. We don't care how long it takes to get food parcels delivered, pharmaceuticals, healthcare. And not that we don't care, it's really expensive and it's really an undertaking. And so we've left our communities, whether in South Africa or Zimbabwe or Nigeria, are really far behind because we viewed capital as this thing that you must pay back quickly. And our view is we need to partner capital in a way that brings value to the community, both also, and brings the investor in, So that's kind of 10 minutes. I'm sorry, I took too long.
No, that was really good. It's a good insight to your thinking, to where you are and what you're doing. And first of all, I love the idea. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great way of reusing something in the economy in a very efficient manner. And that distribution chain is key. But I mean, if we look at it from an investment perspective, and I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, and we need to do this, right? We always need to check things. The capital deployment is more than just a return, right? You see that the capital community is now looking at things that are sustainable, that have social viability, etc., etc. But surely Africa as well need and you mentioned the informal market, and we have the formal market, which is the government aspect of it. The political stability or the situations or the fluctuation of mindset does also disrupt and dishearten investors coming into Africa. And I think like initiatives such as this, where you get, where you fill a gap in community and you start to sort of move it forward, will start to attract people, because attract investors. Once people start using it, you can help drive public policy into the manner you want to. But I think like sometimes if you start at the government level, it gets stuck in a level of bureaucracy and spinning tables and plates that it doesn't get the push that it needs to. Have you experienced that? I mean, this has been my humble experience. And, Brant, same question to you, right? Because you guys live and breathe and operate in this environment.
Yeah, you see, I think, first of all, I have to 100% agree with you. You know, what I like about it is that it's what I see from you is a real people taking real challenges and finding real solutions to that. And when you talk about the infrastructure supporting this technology, we need to look at it as from a holistic perspective, because if you want to use your app or your technology to order food, or the road is the one part that you need, but you also need connectivity. You need to have your users connected to the internet in some shape and form in order to use your platform, and then to order with whatever goods they want. So there's infrastructure opportunities in that perspective as well. Now, South Africa, to a large extent, are kind of taken care of, but there's a lot of areas that are not serviced properly. And if you look at Zimbabwe and the rest of those countries as well, you have an energy problem, and also you have then the connectivity. So I think your distribution centers, your roads, these are all opportunities for foreign investment to come and look at, because if you look at it in the long run, I think COVID has really fast-tracked this need, this drive to get connected and to start using this type of technology. But as Vidya said, I 100% agree with you, Vidya. You need to drive these changes yourself. From a private perspective, because going to government first, is always a challenge, in most countries in Africa. So, and that's how we're going to see the change. But my question to you would be, in terms of connectivity, and in terms of these challenges that, because for another example would be as a requirement for your users to get to your platform would be, if you want to go on Amazon, you need to have a credit card to book your, to order your food in or whatever. But if you don't have a credit card, how would you make those purchases? How would you, solve these problems? So these are the type of challenges that I think if you find a solution to those challenges, it's a really good opportunity, and it will serve as a massive market for a big demand.
Great, thanks. I'm still waiting for the controversial statement, Vidi. We're agreed, and it's interesting that you brought up government. I mean, I purposely didn't look to government because I think governments globally are an issue, not just in Africa. And I think it's
indeed,
the financial crisis of 2008 was a problem that showed how capital influences public policy, as you're talking. And that was Wall Street, right? So government went to Wall Street and said, look, I need to be able to give people more houses. What should I do? And they said, well, allow us to get leverage levels to where we can. And that's, so what that points to is exactly where you then went with it, is that it points to the sort of symbiotic relationship that policymakers and capital must have. So I and we are capital ourselves. We very much believe that Africans should invest in themselves. The name of our business is called Year Two in Zulu, and Xhosa means ours, and so this is a community envisioned opportunity that we will at least start to model ways of looking at return as a business person. Like I said,
absolutely.
That some of the hamstrings we have, or what we're hamstrung by, I conflated things there. But what we're hamstrung by sometimes is that by the time we make use of things like capitalism, that we forget that design and where we are, there's design around product, and financial services in themselves are products. And when you think about return, you can think about return and include other stakeholders. And should I take 10x or take 50x, or is it okay if I take 2 or 3x, but that the community has more left over? I mean, and interestingly with COVID, for me, the Africans' natural and this is what's interesting, the idea of moving together is far more alive in my interactions with my community. You know, it's a very us orientation.
I love that. I
And
recently had something, sorry, I need to put this one in. I
sure,
recently, someone sent to me a little thing on WhatsApp, and it said one bee is a nuisance, right? You could bat it away. But a whole hive of bees, you will run from it. You have
yeah,
to take effect. And that
yeah,
swarm effect is
yeah,
really what will drive change.
yeah,
And you're absolutely right that, you know, how capital is assessed right now and what the KPIs are for success. I think that's a thing of the past, right? Because we have to look at different KPIs. And climate change has driven that. But I think COVID has driven that as well, because, you know, your social benefits from and sort of mindset and your health is as important as anything else. And people are taking stock now and thinking, you know what, if we're going to deal with COVID, it's not just a vaccine. It is our general health. It is our immune system. It is the air we breathe. It is how we live. It is where we live. Right. Gone are the days you want us to be stuck, you know, after lockdown. Who wants to be stuck in an apartment? You're now thinking, you know, I wish I had a garden. I could go outside and sit in a garden. And if you look at it, where have the biggest land space right now for development? So my future spot here
is
is
an African.
Africa continent is not just about infrastructure projects. It's not about, you know, mining. It's not about going and taking what you want. It's actually about people, that herd environment where you actually start to move to somewhere else that could offer you the benefit of, you know, beauty, health, and the environment is amazing. So I recently visited for the first time, blown away.
Awesome.
Absolutely blown away. I was like, oh my
Where were
God,
you?
I don't want to leave.
Where were
I
you?
was in Zimbabwe.
Oh, Zimbabwe is amazing and an interesting place. And I almost for this conversation want to use the term infrastructure and platform interchangeably, because the idea is what are the platforms that these things sit on, right? That when I say infrastructure, I want us to get away from the idea of metal on concrete. It's the idea that what are we facilitating in the infrastructure? Because that's what is now called ecosystems is actually what we used to call the infrastructure, right? It's the things that surround the thing. And the question is, what is the thing, right? And I'm getting a little bit airy, but I absolutely agree that we have to, as Africans, have a view on what is capital. What are we able to do as Africans in terms of investing in ourselves? Looking to you know, foreign investment will come. Or do we need it? I mean, if you look at the outflows of capital that leave the continent, and I can do it at a micro level.
Exactly. Absolutely right. You actually have it inside.
Oh, exactly. So year two is a micro example of the very things that you're talking about. That
Redeploying your own capital.
exactly, if the community just says we're going to hold on to it, and if we help the community facilitate through technology and our know-how and design of financial products that support and the infrastructure, the technology. Telecoms technology and road and logistics infrastructure that bring down the cost of capital, less debt, you know, allow people to circulate cash a little bit more within our communities, you know, then we're onto something. And so just increasingly holding on to that capital versus having financial policy and public policy that allows extraction of the capital, then to say we're waiting for foreign investment, that doesn't make sense. And it's very much sort of you know, the idea of trickle down economics, which we don't all know it doesn't work. So someday somebody's be full enough and then give it to me. And I can't believe that we're not, you know, attractive as a continent. I mean, Bezos is here, he's in fintech here, and we need to kind of understand our own value and also assist.
Don't undersell your own value as well, because I think like and some of the things, I love what you guys did, but sometimes you see people running around with projects and they are overpricing it. And I think there's a realism that needs to happen that says we are going to have organic growth. We're going to prove our business model, and then we, you know, reduce the risk, but show how it works. and then bring only what you need. You don't need something enormous to actually be successful. What you need is enough to prove your model and then grow it organically. And I like that approach a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, recently I think to just add on to that, if you talk about capital in locally in South Africa, for instance, as an example, what we saw from our perspective is in 2020, most of the investors got scared and they just hold on to the capital. There was not a lot of movement on that front, but slowly I think they started to realize that there's a lot of great opportunities, such as Yethu that came up from the COVID situation, and so then we started seeing a lot of people investing into this technology. And I think the key lies in communicating these beautiful opportunities, the right message to these investors and attracting them to keep things going. But we have challenges in that regard with all the lockdowns and everything, but there's still a lot of great ideas going around, such as, Yethu. So I agree with you. There's a lot of local capital, but it's also important to attract foreign investment and slowly to change the model from exporting everything to manufacturing locally, to use what you have locally, because the resources are abundant. Africa is full of resources. It's all about just capitalizing on that. But Vuyo, I'd like to throw a question to you. I'd like to understand.
Can I answer your previous question, because I hadn't gotten to there.
Sure, go ahead.
So in terms of fulfillment, you're talking about. So in fact, that's exactly it. That in terms of the property opportunity around distribution centers and how do you get decentralized distribution going. I mean, those are another part of our investment in another leg of the business, where we look at these retail environments that have closed down for various reasons, competition from big malls, sort of aggregated buying that can be repurposed for distribution. That in itself, as a business, has its own real legs on that. And how do you network people? You're right. In South Africa, there's meaningful networking, but in terms of telecoms and data and internet services. But our uptake, I think, the very quiet partner of mine that's on the call, that shouldn't have been on this call, can tell us what the I'm not going to bring him in, but uptake of most of the internet pings we're getting are 70-80% on mobile in South Africa and not a desktop. Right. So the uptake is there, the network is there, the brands are there. I mean, it was a B2B opportunity. We're basically saying to the brands, the Unilevers, to the let us help you get the product to the people you're trying to service whilst
absolutely.
And that's kind of where. So if you want to come into the townships, come through us, because we understand the townships and it's our communities, and we add value, quality of life to our people. Yeah. So now, yes, your question. Sorry.
Amazing answer. Yeah, no, look, I fully agree with you. I think, and that's what I like about your concept, is that a lot of people don't understand how to, especially if you're a foreign investor, as an example. If you go to South Africa, and you don't understand the local landscape, it's going to be challenging to service those markets. But working with someone with you that understands how to serve your community, to understand the mindset, to understand the needs, coming up with these solutions. I mean, a lot of people might ask us the question, okay, what about security? Theft is a problem in South Africa, and so if I order my goods, how do I, what is the risk in terms of that? But there are all ways of dealing with that in South Africa, and local communities come together and find these solutions. So I'm quite curious to see how things will develop with you, and I'm going to keep an eye on your company and see how things are.
Thank you.
Progressing. It's a very interesting concept, and hats off. It's a really, really good idea.
Thank you very much. It's a long road we're going on, and there's a lot to solve, and it definitely provides a moat, because these are heavy lifting problems, which in theory that we get a moat from being intuitive and designing with insight, and also being willing to take up the challenge. I think this is the reframing of, especially for our continent, the reframing of these opportunities, that, these are the opportunities, the opportunities around infrastructure and power and private sector, especially African private sector, saying, look, I'm going to actually get involved and use my my knowledge, and also just to understand that the was most attractive thing about the African continent, and you hit on this really, is that there's so many opportunities that aren't just you know aren't just the norm. So, I love traveling. I've been very fortunate to travel, but it's all built up. There's very little I can add there. If I'm in New York, adding another skyscraper is not going to do anything for you. And in fact, you won't be able to. There's enough skyscrapers. We don't need more, right? And I can say the same of London. There's, a lot of what was the opportunities there and established. Here, we have a very unique opportunity to
Blank
really.
canvas.
Exactly. So as an African, I can't imagine a better place to be because I can
Absolutely.
literally shape what my kids will experience, right? And
Learn from the mistakes as well, right?
Absolutely.
Because all of these countries that have been developed, you could learn from those mistakes. So yes, there is development, but what do you forego in a city? What is the lifestyle that you forego? And like recently, and I know we're gonna be we have 5 minutes left, so I'll hand over to you to sort of make your final comments. But one of the things that there's such a drive now is the neurological impact of being happy. And when you look at an ecosystem, knowing that your family is safe, knowing that your family is secure, they have food, there's education, there's transportation, you could live. That actually, the impact on society and the growth of society starts to speed forward. So look, as you said, you have that blank landscape, and what you guys are doing right now is that connectivity. What stems from this is a nice commercial, platform that you can have, because what I love about it is that you are driving demand from the people. You are not using their data to tell them what you want to sell them. People are buying what they need. Their buying power and their purchasing power is more. Their satisfaction is more. So then instead of advertising driving demand, demand is driving supply, how the fundamentals of economics should actually work. And I think in a society such as that, it's very interesting where it's going to go. My final point is that once you're on BizzTalk, we have coined something that is one tribe, right? So that's our greeting, and you're part of it now. So we are all one tribe, yeah, that's right. Moving in that direction, and hopefully this session, and we want to have you back, of course, but like one of the things that BizzTalk is doing is not only connecting you to the environment and people and stuff like that. It's others like Brand, like Shadrach, that other people that we spoke to, like Rosalind and all of these guys. That one tribe methodology is not only the swarm happening from individual people moving in a direction. It's entrepreneurs and thinkers and thought leaders such as yourself, all clubbing together and making the environment, the risk environment, stabilize. But you're using technology, you're using innovation, and you're using, most importantly, the care to make positive change drive forward.
It's a powerful thing, it's a powerful thing driving that change, and that's what you're talking about, children and the future generations. And people ask, how do we make change? How do we, build a better future? This is how you do it. You start looking at solving these problems, because if you connect those communities the way you're connecting them now, there's so many follow-up opportunities and solutions that will come with that drive, that change. Connecting more people, and then you'll see the change in Africa happening much faster. And that is what we want to promote. We want to show to the world that Africa is a great place to invest. There's a lot of challenges, but they're all beautiful solutions like this one that can solve those challenges. And slowly the wheels will turn, and eventually you'll see the massive change on a global scale. So it's very exciing.
Thanks, Brent. Yeah, if I can close, thank you for allowing me. Well, my last. Thanks for allowing me into the tribe, and hopefully it's our tribe. So as year two, because it's ours, and I like that we're all building community in a meaningful way. And absolutely, that the interventions are necessary, and such amazing opportunities in creating pride and sense of place in the world for people who've been left out for a very long time is important. They're one of the things that for me is interesting is, you know, challenging status quo as an African, right? And for Africa to really challenge, why can't we build? Why can't we build this from within the community without asking for government and saying, well, we'll let you know, government, how to do this. Or oh yes, foreign capital happy to align with us. So aligned capital. So and also then starting to impact global views on what is capitalism, what is education. Can we redefine these things? Because you spoke on wellness. We have an inherent view that laughter and dance and space are things that we've inherently always had, that we've been educated away from. So maybe it's time to
bring it back.
Exactly, because we've left our villages for the towns, but we've always been in the villages. If you're in Zimbabwe, we had wildlife, we lived with wildlife. Now we I was watching David Attenborough, saying, with global warming and over farming, rewilding is fundamentally one of the key things that society must do. Well, in Zimbabwe and Botswana, we've lived with the wild. So it's almost saying, well, Africa maybe can add something to the lexicon that is education around these views of how do we live in harmony with, how do we not be extractive? How can agriculture work in a way that is in harmony, But there are these very real interventions around education, there are very real interventions around income. And then there's policy issues. If we can help our societies and townships just trap money just through to circulate. I mean, a 10% difference in terms of some of the calculations. If we have a change in behavior at 10%, the local economy, we're sitting at a 10 billion excess income into that economy over a year. That's 10 billion in 10% change, right? That's just coming, if they just come through us, right? And then that means that we've now helped financially people who need it, right? But we had to facilitate that. And then we can deal with the education. That's another important intervention. So these interventions are there and necessary, but yeah, we're happy to partner aligned capital and work together, yeah.
Absolutely. We have various initiatives going on. I have various initiatives. I will contact you separately. And One Tribe will continue to rise on BizzTalk. And, everybody, thank you so much for your time. Bran, thank you for co-hosting with me. And Vuyo, you guys rock.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for your time.
Take care.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.